what's one of the first things you learn to do when you learned how to ride a horse? I bet you it's something to do with up-downs. And you know what? The past couple of weeks, I've actually touched on the fact that so often, for so many riders, we're not doing that properly. Our posting or our rising trot is not great and it needs work. And today, I want to first of all explain why that happens, and secondly, explain how you can begin to work on that today, or well, at least the very next time you're in the saddle. Okay, let's go. Hey there, and welcome to the Daily Strides podcast. My name is Lorna Leeson. I'm an equestrian trainer and coach, and I work with riders from all over the world, helping them to make the most of their riding so that they can make the transition from being a passenger to being a team member, if not the driver for themselves and their horse. Okay, and today I want to talk about something that is so important and that actually is blocking so many riders from making that transition. And it's something that we don't even know can be a thing. Now, I did mention that over the past couple of weeks I've touched on this. So I touched on it briefly when I was speaking about a swinging lower leg, and I touched on it again when I was talking about steadying your hands. And that is that so often when we learn to ride from a place where we're taught up-downs. Now, I am a riding instructor, yeah? Okay, so I've taught lots and lots of people how to post to the trot, okay? Like up-downs. I'm sure there's other riding instructors nodding their head. It can become the bane of your life when you've a lot of beginners. It's annoying, but it is also one of the easiest ways to both explain to riders how to kind of get the rising trot and also to explain the rhythm, the concept to riders. And that's why we use it. That's why we use up-down, okay? Up-down, it's just very simple without, taxing an already quite taxing situation, without putting more onto a very full mind and somebody who's trying to do all the things without, I suppose, pushing them to the point where they're feeling very overwhelmed. Up-down is great. It works like a charm. That's why it's used. However, when we get into the whole nuts and bolts of it, up-down's really just the beginning. So once you manage to get to the point where you're not bouncing about anymore, where you're like, well, will you look at this? Myself and the horse are moving together and you're feeling good. That's actually where really you're just beginning to work on yourself, and especially yourself in the trot, okay? Because the fact of the matter is that while up-down, it does work initially. We can't argue with that. It works, okay? It is essential that your rising trot gets so many upgrades along the way to you becoming a better rider. And that's what I want to talk about today, how you can actually begin to upgrade your posting or your rising trot in order to have a better influence, a more positive influence over how your horse is going when you are trotting. Now, as I said, up-downs work, but up-downs are also very mechanical. Okay, they teach the rhythm, they kind of get them balancing a little bit, but they don't really encourage any sort of, if you want, feel or connection between the horse and the rider and the rider and the horse, okay? Because at the end of the day, rising trot, it should actually be more about a team. It's like teamwork. So often when riders are going up, down, they're simply relying on the horse's energy to push them up and then good old gravity to let them come back down. Horse's energy pushes them up, gravity brings them down, okay? And they're not actually doing a huge amount. Now, when you begin refining this, you're going to think more in terms of forwards and backwards. And you're probably saying, now Lorna. But seriously, that's what it is. It's more like forwards and backwards. And I want you to think specifically about your belly button, okay? And if you can imagine just there, your seat, you're thinking about forwards and you're moving it forward, so towards the pommel of the saddle or the front of the saddle, but you're doing so in a slightly diagonally upwards direction. Now, it's not up, okay? We're leaving up downs behind. Okay, leave them for the people who need them. You don't need them anymore. You need forwards and backwards, okay, of the belly button, of the seat. Now, the only reason I'm saying your belly button is that you can actually begin to visualize and begin to feel what that would feel like, that your belly button actually takes you into each post of the trot, okay? Your belly button is what brings you into each new stride. It's your belly button that's going to lead the way. And then from there, you can now begin to practice almost this like moment of suspension through your body. We're all about creating space. The horse must create space within the stride. Well, you know what? There you go. Same goes. Hey, you need to also learn to create space within the stride. So you also have this moment of suspension where you're not pushing yourself up and you're not forcing yourself to stay there. It's just this lovely held, balanced momentum. And then you gently, there's the key word in that sentence, lower yourself back down. Okay. Riders who remain stuck in the up downs. And again, so many riders don't even know they're stuck in up downs. They learned it. Like, it's like, there you go, we got it. Look at that, can do my up downs away in a hack. Never have to think about the trot again. Not true at all, okay? If riders are stuck in the up downs, what they tend to do is they stand vertically up, okay? So what you'll see is their bum, there's about 6 to 8 inches of daylight between their bum and the saddle, okay? We don't want that. You are gliding. We want to glide, okay? Very often what they'll also do is brace themselves into the stirrups. And this is where you'll see that swinging lower leg. That leg shoots forward. And then when they sit down, it comes back. And then when they stand up, it shoots forward up to the horse's shoulder. We were speaking about this. They'll also sometimes collapse into the back of the saddle. And again, this is because they are not using their own body to move themselves. They're using that combination of the horse's energy and gravity. And of course, the horse has moved forward, yeah, since the horse helped them to get up. So it kind of stands to reason they're going to fall a bit backwards. They're going to land back down a little bit further behind where they started. And then also what they tend to do is as soon as the horse changes rhythm. Remember, your horse can change rhythm for lots of different reasons. Maybe because he's unbalanced, maybe because the ground is unlevel, maybe because he's slowing down or speeding up or whatever, okay? As soon as there's a change of rhythm, you'll often notice that the riders who are just doing the mechanical up downs, yeah, they become a little bit wobbly up there and you're like, whoa, hold on. Okay. And you kind of, your fingers crossed, and you're like, oh, please let them stay on the horse. So yeah, we don't want that. We don't want those things. And I bet you that just me speaking about those different situations now, you already can see exactly why this is actually blocking the horse's training. It blocks the flow of energy. It creates tension through the horse's body, okay? And sometimes it can even be physically uncomfortable for the horse. I've had situations where I had to say to somebody, whoa, Tonto, whoa. Let's refine this a little bit before we go on any further, okay? And that is a very, very important part. We have to always be refining the basics as riders. This is a basic, just being able to stay with the horse in trot. So therefore it stands to reason that it's something you need to revisit and you need to refine. Now, the other big downside, and I mean really big downside, to remaining stuck in up-down mode is that you're never going to have independent aids. And I know, like, for so many riders, independent aids, it's like the holy grail, okay? It's like, you have a few things. You've got feel, independent aids, and the half halt. Oh my goodness, okay? They are like the things the riders want. Yet you're not going to get any of those really if you're not able to begin kind of working on yourself within the trot, okay? Because very often you are going to keep having this bouncing or bracing through your body and your whole body becomes almost like a single unit. Remember, in order for your aids to be independent, they have to work independently of each other, yeah? So you need to be able to move one part of your body or use one part of your body intentionally without that having a negative knock-on effect to another part of your body. You can't do that when you are at the mercy of the horse's rhythm and energy. It just won't happen. And of course, gravity, okay? When you are just up-downing your way around, well, you're never going to have those independent days. Your legs won't be able to give just like little subtle movements and instructions to the horse, such as bend, flex, go, whoa, balance, steady, all the things, hey? Your seat's not going to be able to not only allow the flow of movement, but then influence the flow either. It just won't happen. And then your hands, you won't be able to maintain a steady, consistent contact, very often because for many riders, they're actually pulling themselves up. If they feel their horse's energy isn't enough, or if they don't trust the horse's energy enough, they resort to pulling themselves up, okay? So they're using their hands, their shoulders, all their upper body strength to actually get the up downs, which of course means that, that's not going to work. You're not going to get independent days. And it almost is like, instead of things being responsive and flowing, like you and your horse working together, like that team we spoke about, now, it's like you begin to actually annoy your horse. And not only that, very often you'll see horses actually just begin to ignore. It's like they put the rider on mute. They're like, okay, well, clearly she does not know what she wants. So I'll just carry on my merry way doing this. I'm assuming that's what she wants. We'll keep going. And then the rider complains, oh, my horse is unresponsive. But it's actually because they are unresponsive. So it all comes down to you. You have to accept responsibility and you have to begin working on this. So let's say you do begin to work on your posting or your rising trot. What could you expect? Well, first and foremost, you're actually going to allow the horse's energy to flow from the back end to the front end. And that's what we want. We want the horse in rear wheel drive, okay, so to speak. And then we want that to connect through to the front end. And when you think about connecting through, that's contact and connection, okay? So by you now beginning to really take responsibility for your body and you beginning to hold your body and carry your body in a way that allows that to happen, well, you're going to really and truly allow your horse to begin to engage rather than to hollow out, okay? You're going to, as I said, get this lovely swing through the horse's hips, back, rib cage. You'll get that swinging, that energy as it transfers through, as opposed to your horse just being in front wheel drive and dragging himself along. And you'll also then get this contact and a lightness will begin. But remember, the lightness can't happen until you begin to ride like that, until you get into self-carriage. And this again is part of this doing correct and good quality posting and rising to the trot. Your horse just cannot move well. He cannot work well if you're banging up and down on his back. And that's the truth of it. Like, if you're relying on your horse's energy and gravity to do the work, well, if you're not willing to change that, you have to be then willing to accept things as they are, because it won't improve past that. And I know that sounds very harsh, but that is very, very, very true, okay? And yes, it will feel difficult initially. I had a conversation with a rider about maybe 2 months ago in the arena, and she was complaining about this, and I thought, okay, rather than putting the energy into complaining, do the work. Just focus, like do short little bits of work. Do the work, okay? So I want you to start thinking about your rising trot as being actually a tool to ride better and to help you and your horse to work better together, okay? You want to see it as something that can help the two of you, not just a habit, because that's what it was in the beginning. Up downs were a habit, okay? Like that's what we work towards. We work towards getting riders just to do up downs. But once you've got it, you have to refine it. You have to be willing to refine it. It is so important. Like, you have to learn to accept responsibility for your own movement in the saddle and not just rely on your horse and gravity to move you along. And the only way you can do that is by refining the basics, getting your position, your posture, your self-carriage, getting all of those into position, and then beginning to actually rethink how you are riding the rising trot. So I would say begin by taking the whole thing out of trot. Begin in walk. begin even in halt, and start really seeing, am I able to, and remember belly button first, am I able to rise and fall in a way where my whole body isn't moving about? My legs aren't like swinging back and forth. I'm not using my shoulders. And remember, you may not need to pull your reins to rise, but you may be using your shoulders to tip the balance to make it easier. No. This, and like I just said, it might not be easy initially. It's simple, but it might not be easy, okay? But I want you to really focus on this. And once you can feel how it really feels in your body, then you can begin to work on it and walk. How it should feel, if we think about belly button first, it might feel like, you know, if somebody was holding on to your belt, the buckle of your belt, and just giving you like a little kind of a pull forward. If you think of it that way, like that's how we want to lead the rising. And then again, just like aerobics, when we come down, you're like a feather. I remember I've tried aerobics once in my life. I was terrible. Oh my goodness. I have like no coordination for that sort of stuff. But anyway, I tried it once. It was a massive fail. But I know from that one session that it was the downs. Like, who cares about the ups? The ups were easy. Jeepers tonight, the downs were like hectic. So that's why this always reminds me of aerobics. So I want you to think about that as well. It's the downs, okay? That's where the strength is going to come in. That is where your core being able to hold you is going to come in. And you know what's so lovely about that? Later down the road, when you have really begun to master this and when you've begun to do it in trot, you're actually going to find places in your ride where your horse will lose his balance. And whether it is that it's just a change in the footing, whether it is that he's going around a corner, so it's maybe a change of direction, whatever. There's lots of reasons horses can lose their balance, okay? You'll actually be able to rebalance for both of you because you're able to hold your core. You're able to hold the line, okay? And your horse then can come back to you. And that is such a lovely feeling. And that's teamwork. That's where we want to lead the trot to. That's where the trot, where you and your horse are really and truly working together, where the two of you are really allowing that flow. And that's how you then begin to improve the trot and improve your work with your horse in the trot, and particularly the rising trot as we're talking about it today. Okay, I've got a webinar coming up in 2 weeks' time. I would love for you to be there. If you're keen to figure out exactly how you go, there's 3 things. How you go from being a passenger to being a rider, you need to get your name on that list and you need to join me for this webinar, okay? So I want you to pop over to returningtoriding.com, get your name on the wait list there, and I will let you know as soon as registration opens for the webinar. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Get out there, practice this. And as I said, it might not be easy, but is it worth it? Oh, so is worth it, because that is where you can then have this massively positive effect to help both you and your horse develop the better trot. So good, eh? So good. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Have a fantastic week. I'll chat to you soon. Be good. Bye.